I have the pleasure of teeing up our next moderator, Kalina Bryant. Kalina is our partnerships and advocacy lead for LWL, as well as the founder of Unapologetic. And Kalina has been an incredible contributor to our LWL community as well. With that, I'll pass it over to Kalina to take it away.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ronnie. Excited to be here. And it looks like we're going to have some exciting members joining us right now. It looks like we have Ava, Bridget. Hi, ladies. Good morning. Thank you for joining.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
That's right, Ava. You are in Ireland.
Oh, good evening.
I am. I still am.
Good morning for me.
Nice to meet you, Bridget. Where are you based? Bridget, where are you based?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Wow, okay.
I love Ireland, though. It's beautiful.
Nice.
And it looks like we have our last superstar guest, Ranisha, joining us.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here.
And it's afternoon for you. You're in New York. So I have two afternoon ladies, and Bridget, we're the morning gals.
Morning California. Or to Seattle, Washington.
Right. Yeah. Well, I want to kick things off. Again, thank you for joining and making the time. My name is Kalina Bryant. I'm the founder of Unapologetic, a platform designed to amplify the voices of women of color in the tech industry and to learn and connect from one another. I'm also a proud Rocketeer of Ladies Who Launch. I joined Ladies Who Launch earlier this year when I was actually trying to figure out how to launch my own business. They welcomed me with open arms and really valued my opinions and passions on making sure women had a voice, especially women of color. What I've seen, unfortunately, is we don't get the full opportunity to blossom. And organizations like Ladies Who Launch is really trying to amplify that for us. And after discovering Ladies Who Launch, I was given the opportunity to meet with some fantastic women like yourselves and really understand what's the true meaning of resilience, grit, and the importance of having a tribe of advocates. So today, I'm so thrilled to moderate our session on how to navigate as a minority founder, especially a woman founder. And as women of color, we need our tribe and to be reminded anything is possible with grit and resilience. With that said, today, I am so honored to be on stage with three phenomenal women. I truly appreciate and admire you all. Today, I'm lucky to introduce, we have Bridget Coulter, the founder and CEO of Blackbird House. And also, after doing some exploring, she's an actress, and she also has her own interior design business, such a phenomenal lady. We also have Ranisha Byrne, who's the founder and CEO of Her Agenda, and also one of the Forbes 30 Under 30 members. And we also have the fabulous Dr. Ava Brown, the founder and CEO of Mango Girl and writer, and super badass. She's living in Ireland, living her best life. Welcome, ladies. So excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. It's lovely to be with you.
Awesome. So, I know we're crunched for time and we have a lot to talk about. Really good, dying to kick things off. And before we get into the questions, I would love to give each one of you the opportunity to really highlight how did you start off in your journey? What really inspired you to start your company? And really what keeps motivating you? As we kick things off, I think, Bridget, I'll start with you and just give, a little spill as to how you became Bridget and how you actually were able to navigate two different companies.
Yes, it's insane. I am, thank you, Kalina, again, thank you, Ladies Who Launch. I'm so happy to be part of your platform. Getting to know you guys over this year has been lovely. I started Blackbird. It actually, I don't really share this part of the story a lot, but a lot of it started with the 2016 election and just really coming out of that and thinking, I've run a successful business. I do design build. I had a semi-successful acting business. If I'm sitting here, I'm not really doing that. But I really have fun with that. I love performing and creating. And Blackbird really came out of that a kind of a dark period where I was thinking, how do we come out of this and have all of these advances, have so many women creating businesses and amazing things happen. And how can I be part of the change? I've had so much, I come from meager beginnings, and I've had an incredible opportunities. How do I change that? And Blackbird, the core of that probably started 100 years ago when I was doing all of my different businesses. But it came out of how do I make impact? How do I find us? How do we come together and support each other? And, Blackbird came out of that need to really empower women of color and allies, create positive change for each other in the world, and just be part of us.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget. And Ava, I'd like to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ladies Who Launch, for having me again. I'm really honored. My journey, I run 2 sets of businesses, but I'm going to talk about the Mango Girl, which is really me, and it encompasses all I do. I started that brand out of a nasty divorce. I was seeking therapy, and I just didn't want to go to a shrink, and I didn't want to go to anybody else because I'm a mindset coach, and that's what I do. And so when I moved to Northern Ireland to restore myself, very restorative, guys, you should come and have a look. I really wanted to find stuff for my hair. I've got dreadlocks, black girl dreadlocks, in a community where there are so few of us. As a matter of fact, I'm the only person in my space as a Black person that I know here who's in business. So when I came here, I actually wanted to find my own stuff, and I couldn't find it. And I thought, what better way to find what I want but to create it? So I actually started a fundraiser and started the brand. And a year later, it's been something of a journey, and a phenomenal one indeed.
Awesome. Thank you, Ava. And Miss Ranisha?
So I'm going to try to condense this story because I started Her Agenda in 2008. So I was a sophomore in college at the time. And the reason I started it is simply because I realized that the patriarchy was a thing. I literally was in a bubble. I grew up in New York City. I'm from Brooklyn. I got on this path of becoming a journalist. I believe that storytelling was my purpose in life. And it didn't really matter the platform. A lot of people tried to tell me, oh, do you want to be a broadcast journalist? Do you want to be a digital journalist? Do you want to write for magazines, newspapers? I said, it doesn't matter. I just want to tell stories that can impact the world. So I was lucky enough to start at 16 because I grew up in New York, which is the media capital. So I started actually blogging and doing my own stories. And along the way, I accumulated what I call my board of directors, about 20 to 30 mentors across the industry from TV to print, and majority of them were women. So in my mind, I literally thought that women had the power to do anything, that they were running the world, because that's what I saw. Fast forward to me taking a women's studies class in college, and I realized that there's something called the pay gap, and that when you look at women who are in Fortune 500 companies, that at the time, this was 2008, there were about 13. And I'm like, wait a second, what is going on that women are not running the world? Women are not in positions of power. There has to be something that can be done. And I, being a student of the media, realized that media has the power to shift narratives and to really change the perception of how people are. And that can have a direct impact on on what opportunities we have access to. So that was really the motivation. It was just like, okay, I'm going to do what I can, what I know, and through my purpose, change the narrative about how powerful women are seen in the world, and change the narrative that we tell ourselves so that we can push through the unconscious bias and the barriers that exist. And so I launched heragenda.com by selling t-shirts. Like Bridget, I come from humble beginnings too. No one in my family works in media. No one else is an entrepreneur. I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. So I literally took this motto that I created, no one ever slows her agenda, created t-shirts, sold them, and put up my first website. And that was back in 2008.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So many just phenomenal stories. And that actually kicks things off for me. Thank you. Of just understanding, you have an idea, you have to have grit, you have to have resilience. And a lot of the times, as you all mentioned, You don't have someone showing you how to do it. You're the first, to actually be an entrepreneur, to take the risk, to ask for funding. Like, what is funding? Being able to get thousands and thousands. We aren't taught that growing up. So I'd like to kick it off and just understand your perspective right now of, we're in the times of COVID. 2020 was a very uncertain year. We had an election, we had a pandemic, we were going from in-person engagements to now virtual. I'd like to give the opportunity to hear you out, to understand what's your word to sum up 2020 for you, but also more importantly, what did it teach you to keep navigating as an entrepreneur, no matter what the uncertain circumstances may be? And Bridget, I'll kick it off with you.
I would say that, that's a great question. I think it's important to understand the history, frankly, Black women. We have, for hundreds of years, carried the load of this nation. You see now having our first MVP woman of color, who is Black and Indian, is a long time coming, way overdue, so late, but thankful that we're here, because for our children, they now see the possibilities. But we are a group, and women, I think in general, are just so resilient. We take a lot on, and I think there's just something in the DNA, first of all. And I want to acknowledge the ancestors, the people before us who couldn't even vote, who had to nurse other people's children. I just think that we can't not remember our history, our Indigenous history. I'm a multicultural Black woman, so I have Indigenous, I have Southeast Asian, I have African American, I have so many different tribes in my bloodline that first I want to honor that there is something that all of us, everyone on this stage and everyone who's watching, because you're an entrepreneur, and there's that voice in you that thinks, I can do this better. I think I have a spin on that, or I have a perspective that someone's not doing. And it's true. And we have to be seen. This representation matters. That's why I'm so excited about joining. And I appreciate you guys inviting me to this panel, because we have to know that. And we're never full of doubt. I wake up or go to bed with doubt several times a week. But I know at the core of it, it's not because, it's just because it's a difficult thing to do. But we join together, if we support each other, we all can grow and create. We are now at the better normal and at the path to better normal. The work is still infant. But for me, I think there's that just inner resilience, that person as a kid who wanted to solve every problem. That's kind of the core of who we are. And Blackbird came out of solving that problem of, I looked at the entire country. I researched 1,000 spaces online out of the 5,000 in the world, less than at that point in 2017, when I first started looking, were led by people of color. And then none were women of color running and going global. There were some community organizations, and I thought, why don't we have this? There's so much advantage to that. And I didn't see it happening, so I created it. And I think that's what we do. All of us on this have solved some sort of problem.
That makes sense, Bridget. And I think, Ava, that's a perfect segment into you creating Mango Girl, being in Ireland, figuring out how to have natural products. And I want to understand, in the times of COVID, how has that impacted you? How has that changed your structure of, going forward with your business?
Thank you. I just love following on from what Bridget said, because we just have to pause and acknowledge our ancestors and really just celebrate the journey that they went on to get us here. I remember the days when girls like me, who I heard, Renisha spoke about her humble beginning. I grew up in Jamaica to a teenage mother who herself was a child who gave birth to me. I'm somebody who was sexually abused, and I failed English and math in high school. I shouldn't be in these conversations, but because of the resiliency muscle that I think it is so embedded in our DNA, we have this bounce back ability thing about us that no matter what you throw to us, we can make it. And I think that's what kept me in Ireland, because as a Black girl, I don't have any other shade, but I'm really Black. I'm not the brown girl, I'm the Black girl. I'm bold and audacious. I've got dreadlocks, and I'm from Jamaica. And all of those stereotypes I had to navigate when I moved here, because I moved here already, with my own legacy of what I was doing. And so when I moved here, I found that it was a challenge because I have 100 watt and I needed to dim it down to 30, and it just didn't fit good for me. And I just had to grapple with making the harsh decision that I was going to just be Ava Brown, and I wasn't going to change who I was to fit into the mold, because for years we've been into this mold. And so the glass ceilings came and all of those things came, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this. It hasn't been easy, I must say, and it's harder so because there's no other Black woman here doing business that I can go to. There's no other Black man that I know here because the population of us is really small. But I made a conscious decision, and I'm unapologetic about it and non-negotiable, that in this moment, in this space right now, I am going to shine. We are going to be heard because we have so much to offer. And so doing Mango Girl has been hard. It's been sweat equity. It's been Ladies Who Launch has been very fundamental and instrumental on my journey here, which is so amazing. But and also the bank. But I went on a crowdfunder and started this business, and I just decided that I'm going to mentor other Black girls here and brown girls and mixed race girls who need to understand that we need to have representation. And that's even pushed me and fueled me even more to make sure Northern Ireland landscape changes and looks differently, because ultimately at the end of the day, we all bleed and the color is red. And that's how I feel about it.
Oh, I love that, Ava. Thank you. And, Ranisha, I want to also just, I guess state you're a millennial in a time where you're a businesswoman, you are a CEO, and you're navigating as a Black journalist and leveraging it from so many aspects that is unheard of. There's no book that basically tells you step by step, how can I do this? How can I be successful? I would love to hear from your perspective as a millennial, how are you navigating?
Just going back to your question about just one word of how I feel this year, I think it's super important, and I love the transparency of everybody on this panel, because I think it's so important to be honest about the ups and downs behind the scenes, because often what we see on the surface level are just the highlight reels. And I try to be as transparent as possible, that I constantly go back and forth between feeling overwhelmed and feeling excited, because the beginning of this year was just so scary and uncertain. And now I'm at a point where things are turning, but it's overwhelming because there's still a lot going on in the world with, and it just it's hard to push through. But the thing that pushes me through, I really connected with a lot of what Bridget and Ava were saying about the ancestors. One of my favorite quotes that I always go back to from Maya Angelou is, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. And I'm super aware and conscious of the shoulders that I stand on and what I represent. And that's why, even as a Black founder, I believe that failure is important, but we will do anything and everything possible to prepare as much as we can to do what we can to make sure that failure doesn't happen. I believe that something I've had to grow out of is that fear of failure, because it's necessary for innovation, but it's harder for me as a Black woman founder to fail, because when I fail, they look at all women as, oh, they can't do it, they can't handle it, or all Black people, like we gave her a chance and she didn't do it. That just proves my theory that Black founders aren't worth investing in. And so there's that extra load of responsibility. But what keeps me going is the reminder of that strength. Like, I'm literally the product of the ancestors who survived. Imagine the strength that is in my DNA. So yes, trauma is passed down, but strength, I think, is also passed down equally. And what also helps is just being rooted in my purpose. The fact that this work is not done to get the accolades. This work is not done to get the check. This work is done because it is literally my God-given purpose. And if I didn't have that as a foundation, I would have stopped a long time ago. There are ideas that come to me that literally are not from me. It's literally I'm like a vessel where it's channeled through me, and I can't really explain it. But what helps me to tap into that is, even in those hard moments, going back to gratitude and making sure that I am celebrating when I do make it through a hard time, or when I do get through the day. Just celebrate that. I celebrate by getting candles and making sure I light my candles and just feel good. All of those things are important, especially now.
Oh, I agree 100%. I feel like we're in this therapy session. I love it.
Come on, preach. Tanisha, preach.
I love it. We need
Come with
it. Right. One side note, when I first chatted with Pranisha, I was having such a stressful day, and she told me, you know, the moon's changing, Kalina. I think tomorrow will be a better day for you. I think it's just bad vibes right now, but it's going to change. And it just relaxed me, honestly. I was sitting there with so many different things, and she just channeled me in the right direction. And I mean, that actually brings me into my next segment of, you know, having your tribe and actually having advocates. And I think that, you know, as women of color, it is important to have advocates, but I think that women in general, we really thrive off of the energy. And I think that when you become successful, you don't worry about who's taking your ideas, or, you know, who's kind of like doing something to not make you successful. You really just surround yourself by the energy. And I think that having a tribe of women that want you to win is extremely important. And I want to dive into that. Because I think that, you know, to your point, Ranisha, it's a tribe, you know. I think that we are doing this not just for ourselves, but for other women. So let's talk about what's the importance of having an advocate, and what's important, you know, why is it important to have a tribe? And I'll change it up a little bit, Bridget. I'll go with Ava this time.
I want to just pick up quickly something that Ranisha said, and I love that about failure, because I see failure as feedback. I think it's such a powerful failure is feedback. A tribe is so important. I think having other women, where women are nurturing and emphatic, and we just get it. But just knowing that you have that sisterhood, regardless of where she may be or where they are, to lean into is so great. And I think that more of us, especially as Black women, I can speak for myself as well, that sometimes comes from the family or the church and those kinds of organization. And having somebody who understands my culture is so important, because so often I'm trying to explain something and, you know, people don't really get it, because it's like, you know, because they're not from that culture and they don't really understand it. You know, I was talking to you the other day and I was like, you know, when you just, I think I was cooking oxtail or something like that. And we talked about just how, you know, when we don't have enough oxtail, we can just add carrots and vegetables to, you know, and a Black, you know, you just got it straight away. That kind of sisterhood is so valuable, because she helps to see the picture, the frame, because you're inside and sometimes you can't see the picture because you're inside the frame. But just having that person who you can be so vulnerable and so open and so honest and say, girl, today I really don't feel well, or this is not going well. But to know that she can say, I think you should do this, or she can open a door and she can do some sponsorship, or she can just listen. Sometimes all you need is just for somebody to listen. You don't even need an input. And having that really matters. It's helped my business to grow. It's helping to thrive. Most of the women who work in my organization are Black. It wasn't by design, but it just happens to be that way. I mean, I have, you know, we have a mixture of people, but the majority are Black because they actually gravitated towards me and came. My marketing manager actually is somebody who's made millions. And she's not working with me because she actually gets paid what she's worth. She's made millions. She said, I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you're giving back, you know, you're raising money to build playgrounds, and I want to be a part of that. And so we're building a movement. That sisterhood is important. This is important, to hear your story, to hear Bridget's story, to understand that I'm not the only one who feel like when I end up in UK Vogue, I must think, you know, I must just celebrate that, because that doesn't happen. When we end up in Harper's Bazaar and I look at the mirror and the inner critic comes and says, you're not good enough, right? Can I just be vulnerable here? There are days when I feel like I'm not good enough. I go back to that little girl from that one room shack in Jamaica, and then I call her sister, and she said, "Girl, you deserve to be there." That's so important. It is so much more important to have that support system, somebody you can go to and you can get honest feedback, whether it's good or bad. But the whole objective is to elevate you, and you're coachable to listen. That's gold. And for me, that's everything.
I love that. I love that. I feel like I want to cry, but I got to lead this session. So I'm going to keep it going. And, Bridget, I would love to just have your perspective, because I know when I was launching Unapologetic, Julie actually introduced Bridget to me. And I mean, I had never met this woman, and she was just with open arms telling me that I can do whatever I put my heart to. And this is a person that I was just on the phone with her for the first 2 minutes, and I felt like this could be a person that I have a glass of wine with and just chat with on a regular basis. And it helped me. And would love to just hear your thought process, Bridget, on advocacy and having
absolutely.
a tribe.
I think it's really important and vital, and your tribe can change, it can flow, it can ebb. The core, I've been reading a lot, like seeing a lot of stories and posts about if you shine your truth and your authenticity, and you're going to start to attract like-minded people, and you'll start to build your tribe. The more that you're bold and you go out and you do what you believe. My story started with telling one friend in New York 2 years ago in November, this idea that had been in my brain for a couple years, sharing it with her, similar to you, my friend, she's a badass lawyer in New York. And I said, hey, I have an idea that we should have this space for women of color where we're the Soho House, we're the Noya House, we're the WeWork, we're the center of this. And she's like, and then you think, okay, he said yes to that idea. And likewise, if you come to me, you're introduced from someone that I had an incredible conversation with Julie, who I was introduced to. And when you meet these people, even Tulani, who's on, you just bright lights, and our job as tribe is to make sure we all shine bright so we can have our own festival of lights, and it helps us through the dark times, because there will be dark times. And similar to what Renisha and Ava are saying, this is not an easy journey. The transparency of that is really important. And I know people on this call who are watching, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder, you're starting something, it's tough, but keep going until something says to you, I'm done. Just keep going, because you work through those times and then find something else. And Renisha was saying about failure. I have failed so many times. I messed up so many times in my last 100 years. I'm good. And continue, and that's okay, as long as I acknowledge and say, okay, that wasn't necessarily the way to handle that. What I learned from that is this, and that brought me here. If you look at your tribe, not expecting them to be any more perfect than you are, then you all realize what you serve. There's some story about girlfriends, and you need a different type of girlfriend to like make your whole group of friends. And similarly to your tribe, you're going to have your coaches, your motivators, I'm gonna sip wine with you, and I'm down to sip wine with any of y'all. I pretend like I can really drink wine. I'm like a light. I'll have like half a glass and then be silly, but I will start with y'all. But it's about like, and here's another thing I'm really excited about. We have made a declaration of interdependence. Daunted, and being yourself is enough. Being yourself is more than enough. It's actually all of it. So as you come in with you, the more you are you, the more your tribe can be them, and the more we take off these masks. Now, there are places we need our masks, put them on, and there's places you need your mask just for different reasons, professional reasons, mental health reasons. But at the core, if our values are taking our tribe and making sure we're productive, our communities well, and that we're active, then our common bond and our common purpose will guide us to the next place that we need to go to get to where we all are thriving. Because when we're all thriving, then it's better for all of us. So I think we're just at this point of finding our tribe, acting our tribe, putting them together, and also keeping us on task. But right now it's been hard enough. So like uplift tribe, support your tribe and let's promote wellness. That's really, really important.
I agree 100%, Bridget. And Ranisha, I want to change it up a little bit. I want to hear your perspective on advocacy, but I know that you and I have talked a great deal about learning how to celebrate the big and the small wins. Can you talk to me a little bit about, yes, having a tribe, but also how do you remind yourself to celebrate the tiny wins, the big wins? You know, how do you keep pushing?
Yeah. So I love what Ava and Bridget said about tribe and community. One thing I want to emphasize what Bridget said is the idea of having multiple tribes and communities. That's super important. You get something different from every part of those. And so don't feel like you need to look for that one perfect community. You get different things from different groups. I really believe that you can't be what you can't see. And so part of the giving yourself the motivation to keep going and continue is attending panels like this, or listening to TED Talks, or reading biographies of people you admire. That's where you get that initial spark, that inspiration. But I think the deep everyday work of actually having access to peers that are more on your level, that you can be transparent and vulnerable with, that you can ask those deep questions about, you know, what systems are you using to onboard your employees? Like these little things, like what is the tool that you're using to run payroll right now? Or what accounting activities are you making sure that you double down on so that next year when you're filing your taxes, that you don't get caught up? All these things that are so important that you can't just Google. And you can Google and get background, but you need to actually have somebody who's in the weeds, that's in the arena per se, to give you that real insight. And so I think from tribes and communities, there's three things you get. I won't re-emphasize what everyone said, but just three things: accountability, you get vulnerability, you get a chance to be vulnerable, and through that, you open yourself to opportunity. And so majority of the things that I've done, that I've succeeded at with my business, came through opportunities that came through people that are part of my tribes and my communities. I see things online here and there, but if it was just up to me to find opportunities, I would not be where I am today. So definitely tap into those people that you know, your friends and family, but also those loose ties, like the people that you used to work with. Join the LinkedIn groups, every group. Literally, you never know where your next opportunity will come from. And with regards to celebrating wins, so this year especially is very important to celebrate those wins, because now I think more than ever we realize just how easy that it could be taken away. Like all of the goals that you set for this year completely vanished and we had to start over. And so one thing to know about celebrating, and it's really hard when you're ambitious because you're always going after the next thing. And so you get something, you get that deal, or you got onto that 30 under 30 list, and then it's like, okay, now how do I get on the 40 under 40 list? Or how do I get to this next thing? And that will cause you to burn out so fast, and you won't even realize it because you're still thinking about the next thing. But it's something you really have to rewire your brain for. So human nature, I studied sociology in college, but human nature, we're naturally wired, our brains, to think negatively. There's a negative bias. And that goes back to our survival instincts. Back when we were like hunter-gatherers, we had to think worst case scenario to survive so that we don't get eaten by lions. But now we still have that in us. And so we literally need to rewire our brain to think positively. And when we do, we attract more abundance to us. I love quotes, if you could tell, but Oprah says, you know, the more you celebrate in your life, the more that you have to celebrate. And it goes back to giving that gratitude and shifting the energy that you're putting out in the world to attract more opportunity and more positive things. If you're grateful for that small win, like, wow, this person I've been trying to get in contact with finally answered my email. That's something to celebrate. All the way up to I've met my financial goals for this month. So make sure that you're celebrating that. And part of me celebrating sometimes is just sharing the news with my tribe so that I can feel that good energy. And then also sometimes I'll share on social media, not all the time because I hate just talking about wins, but in sharing, it's not just to say, look at the thing that I did. It's to say, I look like you, I come from where you come from, and I was able to do this, and so you have the ability to do it too. So it's a responsibility to yourself to celebrate your win, but it's a responsibility for your community and those who look to you as an example and a role model.
100% agree. And I know I have tons of questions, but I also know that I'm conscious of time. We have about 10 extra minutes, and I have some questions that we're going to get into around philanthropy and passing the baton. But to the audience out there, if you have specific questions, feel free to drop them in. And the last 5 minutes, I want to make sure that we give that opportunity to you and ask some questions to the experts. So fill them in. But as we proceed, Ava and Bridget, you all are, taking another step back and thinking about philanthropy. And I think this is something that the Black community doesn't really have access to even think about, even the definition of philanthropy. So I'd like to spend some time on hearing your thought process as how do you get involved? How do you become a philanthropist? What does that actually mean to other Black girls that are next in line to also open up their business? And so I'll, popcorn it out, Bridget or Ava, how do you guys want to kick that off?
I personally,
yeah, go ahead.
Philosophy is massive for me because of my childhood. When I grew up and I got through for college, we literally the community gave me a suitcase, somebody gave me a sheet, and that's how I ended up in college. So I came from nothing. And so embedded in me very early was that community spirit of giving back. And also understanding that you need to pass the ladder down. I'm so really big on that. So I am massive. I'm actually just wrapping up a studies at Ulster University right now, which is a scholarship on social enterprise, really big on that. But I travel all over the world. And when I speak, every time somebody gets me to speak, my first thing is I'm going to give back through my value added will be find me a school. Find me a school with deprived children. I always tend to go for kids who were like me, the disadvantaged. So I've done work in South Africa with widows. I've gone to Barbados. I've gone to San Francisco, all over the world, and I really give back. At the moment, philanthropy is embedded in me. So one of the projects I'm working on right now through the Mango Girl is that every pound that's spent with us, 10p goes back to work with women of domestic violence, sexual abuse, which is my story, because I really believe that we have to have some form of corporate and social responsibility. We have to give back. We have to create a legacy. I think legacy is so fundamental. And especially for brown and African extraction girls, we don't have some of the opportunities. So if people like us are not creating and leaving those footprints in the sand for them, then who is going to do that? I think it should be embedded in all of us, whatever race and color and creed you are, to give back to communities. I believe that enabling is necessary, because if somebody didn't enable me, I wouldn't be here. And for me, it's personal. So right now we're on a drive, the Mango Girl Playground Foundation. I've got a social enterprise that I've set up. And I work with women here in Northern Ireland because this is where I live. But I also am building playgrounds in Jamaica. We've just collected money to build playgrounds because children are playing in the streets and they're getting killed. And that for me is so fundamental. So at the core, I keep saying that if I could do what I do for free, and so that I could get to go and do philanthropy and money was never an issue, it would make me very content. And that's how I really view philanthropy.
That's absolutely beautiful. And I want to kind of pick on that and incredible conversation about, am I there? Uh-oh. Okay, looks like I just went away. Okay, thanks. I've had incredible, philanthropy has been embedded in my family, as I got older and we traveled through Africa, and really even in our community and education environment, and international support has sort of been part of our family. But I've had incredible conversations, has really changed my thinking about philanthropy. And and really this declaration, one of the talks I had with Dr. Tyrone Freeman, who wrote a book about Madam C.J. Walker, who was one of the most epic philanthropists. We know her mostly as being the self-made millionaire Black woman who had over 2,000 agents and had a house near Rockefeller during Jim Crow. And yet she had given from when she was an orphan widow, single mother. She was similarly like they took care of her, and then she started taking care. But really, I believe the philosophy of protesting against the prevailing definitions of philanthropy that obscure the generosity of Black people is what I think about. If we think about it, connection between social clubs, benevolence, fraternal clubs, church, we're always giving. We're always giving in some way. And it's not necessarily just money, it's time, it's energy, it's mentorship. So I think that linking commerce and philanthropy, culture and uplifting in this national way is so important. And when people think of philanthropy, you kind of think of the big names and the big people who can give these big checks. But I think philanthropy happens every day in our communities. And something important, I've been privileged to be in a position where I can give away both money and time, but I think both are equally important. And I want that word to be associated with us more than just charity, because I think that the concept of it is something really to be reviewed. And it's important because it creates this kind of class system of philanthropists and charitable. And I declare that we kind of rethink that whole word and look at everyone on this panel, everyone thinking of what you do and think, you know what, I'm going to be philanthropic about this education or this information I'm sharing. I'm going to be philanthropic about what I give. I think that's kind of bringing us up to this equity in giving, which is interesting to me because we're often thought of as receiving philanthropy. To that end, I have a nonprofit side that I started this summer after seeing the inequities, but it is in concert. They're separate, but it also is supported by the work that we're doing on our for-profit side. So I think philanthropy is important. I think we all do it. We should acknowledge it and think of ourselves as that. And I'm proud to call myself a philanthropist because it really is what we do as citizens in the world.
Yes, that is so true. And that actually brings me to a question, Renisha, around philanthropy, but more so thinking about how do we, like even on this call, how do we give back to the ladies on the call that are just curious about how to keep continuing? You know, as an entrepreneur, what is something that you would love for these women to take away, after this call on keep pushing, number one, but also what are some other key jewels that you'd like to share?
I think understanding that no time is perfect to launch, no circumstances are perfect to get started. We all, I think, have shared equally that when we started, we didn't have it all together. We didn't have all the money. We might have been going through things in our personal lives, but you still need to push forward and to get it going. If you wait for perfect circumstances, it won't happen. If you wait until you don't feel fear, then you're not going to start. We feel fear all the time. I feel fear all the time. And it's not about being fearless, even though it appears that way. It appears that we're just pushing forward with confidence. It's really courage. It's not confidence. It's literally tapping into courage to keep moving despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite the horrible news maybe we just got from a mom or an aunt on text message right before we have to go into a board meeting. These things happen. Life doesn't stop because you have a project to get done. It doesn't stop because you need to do a presentation. You literally have to tap into that resilience and that energy of the ancestors like we talked about and get it done. And what helps me get through is just knowing that if I succeed or when I succeed, I can then give back to others in a way that nobody else has done because of maybe the fact that I'm the first person to do it in my family, or I'm the first person in my community to reach whatever level it is that I'm trying to reach. And so it's not just about, oh, I have to work. It's I have to do this so that I can elevate myself to then pour into others around me.
It's beautiful. I will, I could say everything you just said is right on. And I would say to you, you are amazing. Remember that. Even when you doubt it, even when you know that there's that core pulsing through your veins that tell you, no, I'm worth something. Sometimes no one else around you is saying that, or maybe you're too shy to tell other people what you're thinking. But just believe in that and persevere. Stay on your task. Keep acting in spite of the fear. Keep acting. Keep moving forward. Keep going. Don't give up. Take each, and if it's your side thing that you're building, take your time. In your due time, it will happen. In your time, not in the time you prescribe, not the 40, 30 under 30. I'm way too late to be 30 under 30. I'm gonna need, by the time I get to where I wanna be, I'm gonna need the 69 under 69 group. So I'd love to be in that Forbes group because that's about when I'll get there. But that voice, that inner voice, trust it. You are phenomenal. You really are. You, each and every one of you. I just love the women who create. So go for it. Don't give up. Going, and then take a nap when you need it. Take a nap.
Something about breaks, actually, I really encourage you to embrace that time hanging out with your friends, embrace the time that you are chilling on the couch watching Netflix, because those moments are still part of the work, because that's how you recharge yourself. If you just kept going and just productivity all the time, you burn yourself out. Just like a cell phone, you need to charge it up. You need to put yourself on the charger. So don't feel guilty in those moments that you're taking a break and hanging out with friends and, you know, sending memes in the group chat. You need that.
I think I would say that it's your vision. It's yours. God gave it to you. So literally hold it in a stare, because you're going to have all the, you know, the bumblebee is not supposed to fly, but it doesn't know that because nobody told it so. And so hold that vision in the stare. We all can do something amazing until somebody else tells us we can't. So hold that vision in a stare, hold that idea, it's yours, and really just milk it. The other thing I want to say to you is that you're enough and everything you need is already there, as understanding that it's already there. The last thing I want to say is, and I came to this conclusion, is that balance is a myth. In harmony, find harmony. Harmony is a must. And really what it is rather than worrying about how much time you spend with your family because you're juggling all the time, it's focus on when you are there, be fully present. And that makes it happen. And step out of your comfort zone. The power of the ask, ladies who are watching, is so important. Sometimes people are there to give you what you need, but because you're not able to ask, what's the worst that can happen? You can be told no, and every no is closer to a yes. That's my take on it.
I love this. I think we can all write a book after this. After this session, I think it's filled with so many jewels. And to be honest with you, we were actually granted some extra minutes because the conversation is so good. So I want to open it up a little bit more, and just actually give each one of you an opportunity to share what's next for you, and what are you most excited about. We're looking at 2021, and I think probably 40 something days. So what does that look like for you? Let's start off with you,
I'm really taking things day by day, to be honest, but something I'm excited about that I'm working on is I formed a collective with a group of Black-owned media publishers, and we formed the Black-owned Media Equity and Sustainability Institute. And so if you go to blackownedmedia.org, you can learn more about it, but we're challenging advertisers and brands to pivot their advertising dollars to advertise on Black-owned media platforms. The media landscape is dominated by white voices, and specifically white men, and there's a legacy of entrepreneurship connected with Black publishing, but these publishers often only get a small percentage of the ad budgets, and that needs to change. Like, yes, okay, it's great, all these companies are donating to nonprofits, but they also need to invest through doing better business and being transparent about the budgets and opening up the budget so that these publications can not just survive, but actually thrive, innovate, hire Black writers, and tell the stories of the Black community in a way that they deserve. So that's something I've been working on behind the scenes. There's so many other things too, but that's just what I'll put forth today that I'm excited about.
I love it. And Ava, I know you have a lot going on. I think you told me about your podcast. You know, she's always navigating something. So what can we expect from this?
Well, I thank you. I mean, I just actually recorded my first podcast series, Pain to Purpose, and that comes out after Thanksgiving. So I think it's great. I think for me, the two things that I really want to hone in on next year would be around expanding the brand into Jamaica. And it's more around serving that region, but also creating employment. So I've just secured a piece of land in my little district, in my little village where I'm from, which is where we're going to build our first playground. We have just collected the money for that. And what I really want to do is to help create jobs, help create employment. And from a country, as you guys probably know, that has a lot of challenges. And a large part of that is unemployment. So if I can go back into my community, which I'm probably one of the first, my nieces who I just was able to help to send to university this year, thank God, are the second set of children from the area to be going to university. And so if we could go back there and kind of literally help to empower girls and boys to say, yes, you can, right? By creating job, but also I'm all around education. It was my passport out of poverty. I'm a trained teacher in all of this background. That's what I'm trained in. And then on top of that is to really work on rolling out more playgrounds. So we're trying to do a book drive in the UK, myself and some others, to collect all those old books that people don't want. And really get them shipped to Jamaica and really distribute them and start a reading program. My heart next year is all around giving back, because that's really important. We have so much sometimes, and until I went to Haiti recently, I didn't realize how much we have. And sometimes we don't appreciate how much we have. I'm also looking to expand my network and look for investors to help build the brand and expand and grow the way we'd love to. And I've just opened it up. I had a Black sister today said she wants to become a partner. So I'm just really excited and want to work on that. So, and that's what I'm doing really.
Awesome. So many things. And Miss Bridget, I know you have some exciting stuff. I'm actually looking to try to go into your new place because COVID is driving me insane and I need some movements, but tell us what you got
similar
going
to
on
Renisha, and so much, but I'll try to condense it into anything that we're looking to do. Is obviously we moved out of space, and what we've learned from this 8 months or 9 months now that we've been all digital is how important in community is going to be. So we're looking to go back in end of Q1, beginning of Q2 into space, but always to be hybrid, because what we have become similar to Renisha, like we are now sort of a media brand because the programming and content that we've created just out of wanting to support the community. And we've been able to have a global reach, and we've had members from Africa, Europe, and Hawaii, which is US, but overseas be able to join. So we want to do a hybrid where we'll have our physical location and be able to both broadcast and, we're going to have less amount of people being able to be in space. But we'll have that physical community again, which I'm really looking forward to. And then we'll be able to support the nonprofit work where we're going to be taking young people just out of college, that one time when you graduate, those first 5 or so years where you're sort of left floating, and start creating programming. We can both support them in wellness and setting their track correctly. And then our bosses and our amazing women to have a space where we can gather and work on in physical and digital and just support each other, continue to highlight, but it'll be like I said, our interdependent life work community to celebrate creativity, promote wellness, inspire productivity, and encourage activism and all the things we've been able to do. through the election, and what we've learned is we have to stay active. So we got through the voting, and now it's how do we stay involved, how we stay engaged among all of our pillars. So going back into space is daunting and scary, but exciting. And similar to Ava, we're opening up the first friends and family angel investor round. We're not going to go the VC route right now, and kind of start that global expansion that we thought we'd be at starting this year. We'll be starting now, late next year, or middle next year.
Okay. And then just one last thing before we conclude, I really want to, share some knowledge for the audience. As entrepreneurs, what is one thing that you want them to take away for this week to just sit on, and then over the weekend, start fresh on Monday?
I might offer just taking, we're approaching Thanksgiving, which, different people have, there's it's pretty terrible history to American Thanksgiving, but there's also the part for my family that was always beautiful, was just coming in with gratitude. Like, what are we grateful for? We are, our family is Indigenous and African and very diverse. So we would take that time and just think of what we're grateful for and what we want to set ourselves up for next year. As you said, there's 40 days or so till 2021. So I would say for this weekend, if you've been running your, burning the candle at both ends, take this weekend to kind of give yourself that break and reflect and think, what am I grateful for? What have I accomplished? Taking a day off, taking 4 hours off is not going to change your trajectory. So I would offer you just that permission to check in with your wellness. And I'll say that because I was very struck by one thing last month when we did our book on, actually we have our book club this week on Madam C.J. Walker, who had done all this incredible work, had come from meager beginnings. I was also a child of a teen mom and was not supposed to be here. They sent the abortion people to me, to my parents, to be like, so I almost did make it. But that, you take that that time, because she passed away at 52, just before her 52nd birthday. She had done all of this. She was stressed. She was traveling the country, doing incredible things, being this example. But without her here, she can't continue her work. So if you are pushing yourself, if you are exhausted, stop, sis. Take your time. It'll be there next week. It'll be there after, if you need the whole week off, it'll be there after Thanksgiving. I'm telling you, you need to be here for that. This is a tough time mentally for people. Take care of your mental health and do what you need to do to be well.
Yeah. I'd say to you, just to follow on from that actually, is take a moment, and something that we don't do often, I think as women of color as well, we don't do this a lot. I remember coaching a masterclass only last night, and I said to the girls, I want you to write a celebratory letter to yourself. And she's like, whoa, but we don't do that enough. How about sitting down? It's Thanksgiving for you guys in that side of the world. And for all of us across the globe who are on here from different parts of the world, how about sitting down and writing a letter to yourself? Really acknowledging all that you've been through this year and the fact that you're still standing. Just really acknowledge that. Just stand in that space, allow yourself to feel, and just really realize how lucky you are to be still present, strong, powerful. You're embodying graciousness, and write that letter congratulating yourself, because so often we are just in the rush. We're always burning the candle. We're always rushing. I've been guilty of that myself. And then there are moments when I just have to pause and congratulate myself. Look over your CV and look how far you have come. And write that letter to yourself and make it a part of your life, a habit to pause sometimes and check in on yourself and acknowledge what you've achieved. And the achievement don't have to be many big things, because sometimes we think it has to be just macro wins. The micro wins, the fact that, the kids were driving you crazy over this whole lockdown, but you're still here. Those little things really matter. And when you celebrate the micro wins, then the macro wins will follow. That's what I'd love you to do this week.
I would just add 2 quick small actions that everyone can do this week. Start writing down in the morning 3 things that you're grateful for every morning for the next 30 days. Challenge yourself to do that. And just make one small switch from coffee to matcha. I used to be a coffee addict. Now I still have coffee occasionally, but I switched over to matcha, and it does so much for my anxiety, for me not to feel too revved up, to not get that after crash. So try to do that little thing, and it'll help in the long run.
Yes, I'm unfortunately guilty of drinking 2 cups of coffee every morning, so I'm going to try that. And as we close out, I just truly want to thank you, ladies, for making the time. I think that we need more discussions like this. We need more therapy, just to have someone check in with you, but also to just be honest. I think that we live in a world right now where you just can't do it. Vulnerability sometimes is seen as a weakness, and that is not true at all. I think that we need more groups like this. We need more supporters. We need women supporting women. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for dropping the jewels. And thank you just for being unapologetically yourself and being comfortable in your shoes. So with that, I'll leave you all with, good vibes, a good
Thank you,
Wednesday,
Kalina. Thank you,
and
Ava
much more
and
to
Anisha.
come.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Be
Best
well,
and happy
everybody.